Hi, I'm Jennifer Harris, and this is my reflection video of Module 5 of the Teach Now program. For this module, I began by choosing a standard and then working backwards to end up creating lesson plans. I wrote a unit with a vision, and then after that, I wrote 3 lessons. So you can see here is my unit plan template for the module. And I began with choosing a Common Core standard. As you can see on the screen now, this is a page from the Colorado Department of Education website. And the standard that I chose was reading, writing, and communicating. And you can see that it's at a 3rd grade level. If you go down to number 3 here, writing and composition, right here, and then over to here, the number 3, correct grammar, capitalization, punctuation, and spelling are used when writing. That is what I focused on for my unit. As I look back, I feel like the planning went well because I started with a Common Core standard and then planned backward from that. So as I did look back on them, I did make some revisions of the lessons, and 2 things that influenced my revisions were, one was feedback from my instructor. I had as my goal that students would be able to write a correct sentence by the end of the unit. And with feedback that this was a little simple, it got changed to students would be able to write a 3 to 5 sentence paragraph on a single topic. So that was one thing that I revised, and I felt like that made that a little bit better. The other thing that led to a revision in my unit plan was when I actually taught one of my lessons. I taught a lesson on punctuation. So let me just go over here to that lesson. And I taught this one to 2 homeschooled boys. So that was the setting that I taught this lesson in, not to a classroom. So the first thing was this lesson took much less time to teach than I had planned for, 45 to 60 minutes. It went by quite quickly. That was one of the things that I realized that when I actually taught it to go back on to reflect on. So I have marked some things that I would do if we had time to do them. And that was definitely something I would be able to go back and do. For example, we did a fable that they needed to punctuate. And one of the things that I thought would be fun was that if they could act it out. It was just a quick little fable, and it would be fun to act out. And I did not do that during this lesson, but I know that we would have plenty of time to do that. Also, I wanted to read a picture book called Punctuation Takes a Vacation, which I requested from the library, and it did not come in. So I just found some fun cartoons on the internet and printed them out with where punctuation was used incorrectly, and it changed the meaning of it. But since then, my book came in from the library, and I found a whole series on punctuation that I have right here called Meet the Punks, and they have titles like Christopher comma and Alan apostrophe. So I found more resources that I could add to either read in future lessons, or that could be substituted if I didn't have punctuation takes a vacation. I think a critical part to my unit was creating the 5 SMART objectives. That happened back towards the beginning of this module. And those 5 SMART objectives, as I have in my main lesson plan here, which were related to the level of Bloom's taxonomy, really helped me to focus and stay on task and create a good, solid framework. And here you can see I have my little note for my revision here. Students will create a complete and correct sentence. I changed that to paragraph instead of sentence. So one thing that I thought that was very helpful as I was teaching my lesson on punctuation, I'm going to go back to this, was the formative assessment. I'm not used to doing formative assessments. This was a new thing for me to learn about. So I looked online for some ideas and I found this popsicle stick idea and I just loved it. You can see I created my own here. In the lesson, we focused on the exclamation point, the period, and the question mark. So as part of the formative lesson, I asked a sentence. Well, I read a sentence, and then the boys had to hold up the correct punctuation. If it was a question, they had to hold up a question mark, for example. So that is something that I thought would work really well for just about any subject. You could make it, and it was a fun, as you can see the picture here, it was a fun formative assessment, and you could do it for other things. I just changed a little bit as I made 2 sets, so you can see they're multicolored there. I made my colors the same, like both the periods were on a yellow stick, so there was a little element of matching there. So last, as I reflect on how I will use this planning process in the future of backwards instruction, I will say that I learned a lot of useful steps to follow, starting with the standard and, of course, going backwards. I have been more used to planning activities first, but by the time I got to the planning activities part, I was happy with the activities I came up with, and they definitely met the goals, not only of the lesson, but of the unit as a whole.